It's always wonderful to have Levi Roots to come and speak at the conferences. I say speak, but he usually ends up singing. It's wonderful. There's only one thing better than seeing Levi Roots walk into the hall, and that's seeing Levi Roots walk into the hall with his guitar. Because we know we're going to be really entertained, and I know he's going to get you all singing. And if he doesn't get you out of your seats dancing, I'll be amazed as well. But it's always fantastic to invite Levi Roots. He's a fantastic friend of the school, so I'm going to ask Levi Roots to come and talk about his experience with food.
I brought my guitar because this is Charlton Manor, you know, and this is like, as I say, I feel like home because I feel so welcome ever since I've started to come to this school, because schools have played a big part in my journey since I slayed the dragons. It's been that part where it's the most enjoyable part for me within my diary when I go on to schools, and because I remember as a kid how much there was a school just down the road in my small little village in Clarendon. And I used to watch my brothers and sisters every day get up, because I think I was about 3 years younger than my last brother, as the youngest. And I used to watch them go to this school, and sometimes I used to get up in the morning and follow them, just go to the school gate, and that's as far as I ever got to. And, you know, peeping over the fence and seeing, you know, and hearing the other kids playing and seeing what joys you could have when you're in a bunch of other kids of your own age. But I never got beyond those gates, you know, never did, because in the Caribbean in those days, in the sort of 50s and 60s, the eldest kids was the only ones that actually got to go to school. Because it was the time when that sort of immigration, everybody was coming over to the UK, and there was no moms or dads in Jamaica particularly, because most had left to come to the UK and America, and the diasporas got bigger. So the grandmas was in charge of everything, and as a child, you always saw your grandma as your mom and your dad and everything in one. I was about 4 when my parents left at the time, so I didn't have much memories of them. So hence, nothing was spent on me school-wise. So my greatest journey every day was following my brothers and sisters to Maypen School, which is where the school that they went to. And you know, just going to the gates and just seeing them go in and knowing that they're going to have a fantastic time learning. And I never got the chance. So whenever time I'm here, and Lucy, my PA, will testament to you that schools is perhaps the most important thing in our diaries every year. And it's just brilliant now that I'm not just peeping over the fence. I'm in there and I've got my guitar. You wear a beautiful smile. The look of love is in your eyes. And I can only realize about what it will be like in your life. You really take me away. Every time you truly make my day. It's absolutely crazy. Crazy about you. Definitely, maybe I'm crazy about you. Don't you make me wait too long. This feeling's killing me, it's so strong. And I am feeling you belong together with me in my arms. I will do anything for you. Believe in me, 'cause I'm into you. I'm absolutely crazy. I'm crazy for you. Definitely, maybe I'm crazy for you. Just one look and I'm in ecstasy, yeah. You're taking me higher than I'd ever been. And if you want me to, I'll make the skies blue. I'm definitely crazy, crazy, crazy for you. Definitely, maybe I'm crazy about you. Absolutely crazy. Yeah. And music has always played a big part in my life. I mean, those of you that has followed my journey in any way will perhaps know that, you know, my sort of usurpedness into the business world was via the Dragon's Den. And as you know, on there, you've got to have your unique selling point. You got to have your USP, something that sort of makes you a little bit different. And this guitar was my unique selling point. It was the reason. And I think if I don't start with this, then I'm not being the real Levi Roots, the true one. You know, and that's why I love to start with the songs in my talks. But what I really wanted to talk to you about today, and hopefully I'll get a few questions from you guys, you know, just within it, in case I nip off and I don't get a chance to talk to you after. So I'm going to cut my talk a little short and then take a few questions. But I just wanted to mention about my food journeys over the past year since I was here last time, and the stuff that I've done and was cumulated into that, because I think you know the story about the Dragon's Den and all that kind of stuff now. But my journey really, well, as you know, it's always been about Caribbean food for me, not just my personal brand, which has been fantastic that I've managed to realize my dreams and turn my life around from the Levi Roots that couldn't focus and couldn't function all those years ago until I finally met my mentor in Peter. And that's one story, but the new story now is where do we go with that? And I've always talked about bigging up Caribbean food, and I've just been lucky enough to open my first restaurant. Thank you very much. And, you know, that's been like a dream come true. It really have, not just for me, but I think for everyone that's always liked Caribbean food, you know, that's always wished for when they step out of their front room or out of their houses, it's not too far to get to a Caribbean restaurant. And we all know what it's like when we fancied a bit of spicy food every now and again. You know, we drive past a sort of very seedy Caribbean takeaway in some like corners of Brixton or Hackney or somewhere like that. And we thought, I fancy a little bit of spice. But when you look at the location of it, you actually thought, nah, look at all that. And you head on your way. And you never get a chance to taste this fantastic cuisine because it is good food that's in there. But I do think it's about the business side of things that's never been right about these sort of takeaway. And I always promised myself that I wanted to create a space for all the people that's been buying my sauce and been liking Caribbean food before, even if you've just ever gone to a carnival in your life for once, or you've ever been to the Caribbean on holiday and you've taken back this lovely taste of jerk chicken, of rice and peas, of ackee and saltfish, and all these sort of great spices from Grenada, the Spice Island, and from Antigua, one of the most beautiful islands of the Caribbean. And if you've ever watched the cricket in the summer and West Indies is playing and you ever felt like, oh, I fancy a little bit of spice and all that kind, I wanted to create a space for you guys. And luckily that, you know, the brand, you know, people had known the brand. So all I did was just go to Jamaica and lay on the beach for about 3 months and just have a really good think of what I really wanted to do. What did you want to express to people in this restaurant, you know? What is the difference between it and Jamie Oliver's restaurant, who is just next door to us in Westfield Shopping Centre in Stratford? And I wanted to answer those questions by saying that this is about me. You know, this is about my life and about my story and about my grandma and everything that I've talked about in the last 10 years since I was on Dragon's Den. I wanted to create that in a space that people can come and enjoy Caribbean food. Get not just the food itself, but also the stories and the vibe and the feel. And if you've noticed, I've said Caribbean food because that's very particular, because again, about these takeaways that we've always wanted to experience but don't, it has always been about Jamaican food. And I think we know that. You know, we know what the experience of Jamaica is about, because someone like Usain Bolt, you know, Caribbean food has been so fast and everybody's taken to that. But the Caribbean is about a plethora of islands, and I'm so glad to be able to express in our menu in the restaurant of what the Caribbean truly is about. So you've got to come, and if you ever fancy a bit of that, come to the restaurant. The other thing that my food journeys has been fantastic is that, you know, that thing about if you wait at a bus stop and it never comes, and then as soon as you walk off, 2 or 3 comes after you. Well, I'd never been into Buckingham Palace, and I just live a stone's throw from it in Brixton. As a matter of fact, you can literally see the palace if you're in a tall building from Brixton. And last week I was lucky enough to be asked to go to the palace twice, on a Monday and a Tuesday. And the fantastic, I know, I couldn't believe it myself. I mean, I'll skip to the end part, because even at the end when we were leaving out on the final day, the usher, one of the usher, looked at me and says, "Levi, are you sure you should be taking up residency here?" Which I thought was quite cute, because, you know, the reasons why I'd never gone to Buckingham Palace before, because if those guards had seen me in my prior life, they probably would have put a handcuff on me, much less, you know, offering me to come in and call me Mr. Root, sir. But the important thing about that was being invited on the first day by His Royal Highness Prince Philip, who I've worked very closely with his Prince's Award. Because as a kid, I remember the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme was something that I always wanted to do as a kid again. It seems like I never did anything I wanted to do as a child, because I really wanted to do that. It was the most adventurous thing that you could have done in the 70s when I was in school, you know, to jump out of airplanes and go in and fantastic camping and, you know, and learn how to do all brilliant things, you know, as scouts and that. Never got to do it. And, you know, 40 odd years later, here I was now being invited by, you know, the Prince himself to come, and not to receive this time, because it's the other side of the coin this time, which is to give. And for the past few years, I've been lucky enough to be asked by Prince Philip to present the Gold Awards for DOE, and which culminated in him asking me to come to the palace, which we've always done it before at St. James's Palace, but this was a special one to be asked to come to Buckingham Palace to be in the garden. And of course, I did make a gaffe, as I said on my Twitter page, that you know, when you go to the palace and you talk about food and anything, the first thing you got to have when you're in the palace, not in the garden, because we were asked to actually go inside, my dears. So obviously the first thing you got to have when you're in Buckingham Palace is tea, isn't it? You got to have the tea. The most fantastic china was brought out. You know, it was a brilliant thing. And I love tea because, you know, I love my heritage here. And I've always fancied myself as a good tea maker. And knowing, you know, that thing about when to put the milk in from when not to put the milk. Because you're in the palace, you got to remember that. So they brought this lovely tea, and I thought, oh, I'm going to have a nice, lovely tea. I was just feeling a little bit hot. And you know that old philosophy of if you do drink a nice hot tea, when you are hot, it helps you to pant, and then it helps you to cool you down. It's a bit like chili. They say that if you eat chili in the summer, which I can tell them is a bloody lie. Because I was feeling a little bit hot, as you do. I was dressed in a lovely sort of purple suit. And the purpleness and everything was making me a little bit warm within the palace. Because I was still feeling a little bit, you know, above my thing, because I was inside, and I thought that, wow, Levi Roots from Brixton, the Rasta man that sings songs and has a sauce called Reggie sauce. What the hell are you doing in Buckingham Palace mixing with these guys? So I was feeling a little bit chill. And I had the tea. And the tea did make me feel a little bit hot. But the goof was putting the milk after I put the tea in. ladies and gentlemen, I did feel a little bit let myself down. Because we know that if we're in Buckingham Palace, the Queen, I think, she would have put the milk in first and then the tea afterwards. So it blew up on Facebook afterwards that I'd done the wrong thing. But then I had loads of people writing to me afterwards and actually telling me that, no, Levi, actually you did do the right thing. Because tea back in the day, you didn't put the milk in first because the china was weak and you had to put the milk in to make sure, you had to put the tea in before and all that kind of stuff. So I learned a lot on my first day on the visit for His Royal Highness Prince Philip. And then on the second day, Prince Charles invited me and I thought, what's happening here? 2 days by the father and I know the son. But of course I work very closely with Prince Charles and on his Prince's Trust. And the brilliant food story and that is that I actually have my own program to do with the Prince's Trust, which I've had now for the past 10 years, that my company facilitates that. And it's a cookery program that we have, which makes me very proud to say that, if there are young people out there like myself who are passionate about food, but just need somebody to point at them and say, okay, I can help you, I can mentor you, or I can provide you with certain skills. And that's what I'm very proud of this program for. But not only that, because now that we've opened the restaurant, we actually employ kids from that program, which, is for me, is the full package, because not only you're talking the talk as well. And it's been brilliant that we've had the association with Prince's Trust. But the Prince, he also had a garden party this time in Buckingham Palace the following day, and we were lucky to be invited there as well. And I promised myself the next day when I'm going to make the tea, I'm going to put the milk in first. But when I got to the garden party, in the garden it actually wasn't, it's a bit different from inside the palace, because this time all the lovely cakes were laid out in the garden. And I don't know if you've ever been in a garden party, but it's lovely cakes, and they're all fluffy and delicious, and everything is wonderful, and people are sitting there with pinky up and all that kind of stuff. And I was looking around and I was seeing all kind of fabulous people, everybody. The most important person that I stood next to was no other than the legend that is Mr. David Seaman. As you all know that I'm an Arsenal supporter, so it was great for him to be standing next to me. But people like Joanna Lumley and all that kind of lovely people were there. And it was brilliant being in the garden and knowing that these kids, who is the most important thing when you talk about the Prince's Trust and the Duke of Edinburgh Award schemes. Because you hear the stories of these kids who persevere. And for me, that's always been about my story a little bit, is how to persevere. Especially when people are telling you that you can't do it. More likely that these kids have gone through so much. But then to come through the other side when they've persevered and triumphed and then be rewarded in the way that they have at the palace was just fantastic. And for me, it's always great to hear in their stories and just knowing that if only, I got the chance to do it when I was kid, I could have been there collecting it. But it didn't work out, but still I felt so rewarded just to be there amongst them, to give him the award. And also to tell a little bit of my story as well, because I do feel that my story of coming from nowhere and persevering on the other side is still the most important thing that I can ever talk about. So for me to talk to them about that was something brilliant. So the year has been a fantastic food journey for me, not only about the restaurant, but about the visits and the people that we meet, people that are coming into the place and giving me their stories. And I give thanks so much for that. Last week, 2 weeks ago, one of my heroes, he came to his anniversary in Bob Marley, who died in 1981. And as I always talk about, he's one of my heroes. And it was because of his music how I managed to change my life around. We all have our different ways in how we change our lives. We all have a different switch in what makes our switch, what turns us from being somebody who has potential to somebody who's done it and realized their dreams. His music was one for me. So I was a bit of a sad mode. Always is when it comes to the end of May, because that was his passing. And of course, other inspiration, for me through his music that helps me to be the best of me. And when I come here, I certainly see some kids that I know that, they are, it's got that sort of Levi roots spirit in them. So hopefully if I can inspire them in the way that Bob Marley and even Peter Jones has inspired me, then it's fantastic. I think I've got a couple of minutes. I'm going to take a few questions if anybody's want to ask me anything before I depart.
I don't have a question, but I want to take a picture and to show my son. My son seen you on the TV or live when he was in Dragon.
Okay.
And he always buy that sauce.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the plug.
I want to show him that I was the dude.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll do that. We'll take a picture. Young lady.
Hi, I'm curious, how did you get involved with Prince's Trust? I mean, there's lots and lots of charities out there that you can hook up with. Did you choose them? Did they approach you? How did you get involved with them?
Yeah, they approached me, and I was, I was lucky enough for them to approach me actually, because I always say lucky because I don't think back then that I was doing anything fantastic. I don't think my appearance on Dragons Den was anything to be inspired by, basically, because I didn't do anything better than most of people that had gone the other way, that the Dragons had said, get out of here, we don't like you. I sweated, I got my numbers wrong, and everything was there. I think the most important thing that I have is being me. And if that's enough for an establishment like the Prince's Trust want to say that, Levi, we like who you are, then if that's a story that I can tell to other kids who might feel that they don't fit in, or they may have to change in some ways which doesn't suit them, I do think my story and my persona says that actually no, you can be you. Providing you have the other things like a really good business plan and you find yourself a mentor and you put that all together. But you can have your own beliefs and be, it doesn't matter whether you're rich or you're poor, whether you're black or white, whether you've got 3-foot-long dreadlocks like myself, you can make it as well. So I was really amazed that they've asked me, to be able to do such great works. And it's just been brilliant over the years, and I love that, especially because these kids, they've had to go through, especially for the Prince's Trust, not so for the Duke of Edinburgh, but I think the Prince's Trust is that most of these kids have been through some tribulation or the other, and I think that's why it inspires me to work with them, and now to employ them for my restaurant. Yeah.
Did Peter Jones help you with the restaurant?
Yeah, absolutely. Peter still owns his percentage in the business. As you remember, it was two Dragons I had. Peter invested 20% and Richard Farley. The Australian one, the forgotten one at the moment, which nobody seems to remember him, but he was the Australian, sort of floppy-haired one that was on there. And I brought my shares back from Richard after about 18 months after the show. But Peter, as I says, mentors, you always need that. I don't think me bounding on the den and selling bottles of sauce and all that determines that I am the full-fledged entrepreneur. I think that there is much more for me to learn. And you will always need somebody that knows more than you. And even I'm fool enough to realize that this man, if I have him as sort of alongside me, it would be, magic for the business going forward. And we've been a great sort of double act as the dragon and the slayer. Obviously, he's the dragon and I'm the slayer. And we've been fantastic together, still.
The last time we met was in Kensington Palace.
Oh, was it? Yes.
So you're always in palaces. But my question is, there's a couple of things. What are you thinking about in terms of restaurant? Is that going to be a chain or is it just one-off? Are you thinking like the Jamie Oliver? And can I get chicken rice and peas?
Well, the first one, is it a chain or is it just one? Well, I talked about that it's about Caribbean food for me and about how I would like people to be able to step out of their houses and not walk too far to find a Caribbean restaurant. I think what we've just started is just that first blueprint, I would like to call it, to see how it is. And it's been going fantastic. We're packed every day. People just seems to be supporting us and love what we've done with it. So yes, definitely a chain. I definitely want to roll one up. Perhaps here in Charlton, to have one here around here. It'd be brilliant. But we started in Westfield Shopping Centre because I suppose that I wanted to go the other way because we know how places like Brixton has become gentrified, and a lot of people is writing to me and telling me that, local people that was there for years can't afford to have businesses there anymore because the big boys are coming in, and Brixton is not called Brixton anymore, it's called Brixton Village now. So it's like that. So I thought that, I want to go the other way, Instead of only staying in localized areas, I want my brand to be up where the big boys are. And that's why I chose Westfield Shopping Centre, because biggest shopping centre in Europe, that's where Caribbean food needs to start, and that's where someone like me, boy turned good Rastaman from Brixton, I want to be up there with Jamie Oliver and with Gordon Ramsay and with anybody else, because as I said, business doesn't belong to anybody. No one has a right to have business. Anyone can do. So I'm just enjoy playing in those fields with those guys, because Jamie has a huge restaurant just next door to us. And I'm always like having a big smile on my face when I go outside and I see that we're more packed than him. And for the second part of your question, can you have rice and peas, jerk chicken? Of course, that's the the life force of Caribbean food. And again, I've had to try to be as authentic as I can, especially for Caribbean people who knows Caribbean food and they don't like it to be played around a bit too much. But I think for some reason people have allowed me to play around with it, because I'm so glad they know that for me to get it round to mainstream people. For instance, I can't cook goat curry in the way that it normally would be, because in Jamaica, if you're cooking goat, actually it's not even goat curry, it's curry goat in Jamaica. So if you're cooking curry goat in Jamaica, you will cook it with lots of bones, because the marrow comes and the flavor comes from the bones within. But I couldn't serve curry goat in that way in the restaurant where it's mostly mainstream people. It's a mixture of people there, because with that you get a lot of wastage with the bones in the plate. And people want everything that they can consume. So what I've had to do is form a new way of cooking curry goat. It's like cook it with the bones, but then fish out the bones afterwards so that you get the flavor of the bone, but you just don't get it in the wastage. And people have forgiven me for that, because they realize that I've had to do that. So yes, you will be able to get all things authentic. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really important question. That's a really big one there. Because I think what you're saying there is the balance between having kids to have authentic meals from home, what they're familiar with, what their parents are cooking, what their background is about, which is important. It's really important. But on the other hand, is it healthy? Is because food science has moved on, leaps and bounds. And things that I recognize that I would have loved as a kid to have as a Caribbean things, like, I know there's a few Caribbean people, so they will know I'm talking about, like ackee and saltfish dumpling and yam and put on the fork and yam with your hand and all these kind of lyrical things like that. I would love to have that, but is it healthy? Because when I was in the Caribbean and we had all this, and I used to see my grandfather, for instance, big man, but same philosophy. For breakfast, my grandfather would be eating things like, oxtail and big foods, like proper foods. Because he would be going out in the fields and he'd be working hard, cutting sugar cane, and then he wouldn't survive on, a few eggs and stuff like that. I wouldn't be feeding my kids those kind of traditional foods here in this country where you don't really need that. I think it's more about healthy. So if there's a balance can happen where you can still have your traditional type food, but not in the way as how it is, how we would normally cook Caribbean. If we can healtherize it, is that a word? In some ways, then I think it would be a good thing to have that balance. But I do think it's an important point you raised there, that I think kids deserve to have food from their background, especially into learning how to cook it as well. Which is something else that we've been blazing a trail for in one of my other programs, in my school's program, my School of Life tour, which we do. And we go around to schools all around the country and talk to kids about eating healthy and cooking with them, which actually we've just started a fresh course of that at my restaurant. I think we start next month, where we now invited kids from 7 to 11 to come in to do master classes with myself about cooking food and about learning about nutrition and all that. But yes, I do agree, it should come from a sort of a cultural background as well.